I'm Dr. Abhijit Trailokya, heading the medical department of Alchem Laboratories. Welcome you for webinar on nutrition and immunity. So this program is brought to you by Altis division of Alchem Lab, Mumbai. So as everybody know, we are, entire globe is actually going through a bad patch of COVID-19 pandemic. And to battle, or rather, to fight against this COVID-19, the immunity plays very important role. And whenever we are talking about immunity, definitely you cannot forget about nutrition. So to understand more about nutrition and immunity, today we have eminent speaker with us, Shilpa Joshi. So let me take an opportunity to introduce Shilpa Joshi, madam. So she is director, Mumbai Diet and Health Center, practicing dietitian, diabetes educator, vice president, Indian Dietetic Association, honorary secretary, All India Association of Advancing Research in Obesity, master trainer, diabetes conservation maps, published more than 13 papers in reputed journals, course director, National Diabetes Education Educator Program, trained more than 3,000 diabetic educators, presented at various national and international meetings, including American Diabetic Association and International Diabetic Federation. So with this, let's welcome Shilpa Joshi, madam. And now I request madam to start the presentation. Thank you very much.
Shilpa ma'am, you are on mute.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for kind words of introduction, Dr. Abhijit. Yeah, I'll just share my screen. Can you see this slides?
Yes.
Are you able to see the slides? Yeah.
Yes, madam.
Okay, so like Dr. Abhijit said right in the beginning, we are actually faced with this pandemic, and when we were when it was new last year, when COVID had just come, we were busy understanding what was the problem. But one thing was definitely very clear right in the beginning, that if we needed very strong immunity to overcome this problem. So even if you contracted the infection, you still needed very good immunity to fight it. And to prevent getting it, also you needed very good immunity. So one thing was established, that immunity is very important. And what feeds immunity is very, very good nutrition. And therefore, what I'm going to be talking today is maintaining immunity through good nutrition. And I know, we all of us know that we always tell our children in our house, or older individual geriatric people, that eat well so that you feel strong and fit. But it's some nutrients that are, pardon me, more important than others. Food is a very complex matrix made up of many, many nutrients. And I'm going to dwell on some of them, giving you some examples of the nutrient matrix to make the whole thing very easy. So I know this is a very august audience with doctors practicing for so many years, but we have to begin presentation somewhere. And the first thing we are going to talk about is what is immunity. So this is ability of organism to resist a particular kind of infection or toxin by action of specific antibodies or sensitized white blood cells, which could be T cells. So the overview of my talk would be factors which impact immunity, nutrients that are important in immune function, WHO guidelines for advice for adults during COVID, Ayush recommendation, because Government of India is stressing a lot on Ayush recommendation, and conclusion. So these are various parts of immunity. We know that besides humoral and cell-mediated immunity, we have many, many other immune functions, like we have barrier through skin, and there is mucosal immunity, especially coming through mucosal membrane itself, but other kind of antibodies like antibody A, and then there are lysosome, phagocytes, so on and so forth, complement system, interferon, which are all parts of immunity, and they all come together to sort of fight against whether it is microorganism, parasite, or even malignant cell. So in general, all this forms one umbrella in which we are going to speak. And factors which impact nutrition and immunity is, of course, age, gender, genetics. Yes, these are non-modifiable factors, But nutrition and diet, and then hormonal factors, whether it is obesity or other hormonal issues like maybe type 2 diabetes or hypothyroidism, other things. And then there are other factors which are like alcohol consumption, acute chronic exercise bouts, stress. And with this, we just do not talk about environmental stress and physiological stress which infections give us, but a lot of psychological stress which COVID has given us through intense periods of lockdown, where we are holed up in our houses, unable to meet our family and friends, and that has created a huge impact on individuals and hence huge impact on their immune system. And of course, exposure to pathogen and hence masking, maintaining social distance is so very important. And we all are lucky enough to have received vaccine, at least as healthcare providers. So what are the factors that impact immunity? Modern lifestyle, reduced exposure to microorganisms, increased exposure to pollutants, high level of stress, westernized diet, and host of other variables are likely to contribute to immune dysfunction. Now, because I'm a dietitian, I'm going to dwell more on westernized diets. So typically, whenever we talk about westernized diets, in our mind, the only thing that comes is pizza and burger, but that's not the definition of a Western diet. What is a Western diet? A Western diet is a diet which is characterized by high intake of saturated fat and omega-6 fat, reduced intake of omega-3 fat, which is very, very important in immunity and in cell membrane function, with the overuse of salt, too much refined sugar. Now remember, my dear friends, are these not Indian diets that we are consuming today? We may not be consuming pizzas and burgers, but we are definitely consuming cookies and breads and other things, maybe our nashta. All of this is all Western diet. You don't only need to eat this to call it Western diet. Even this, by its nutritional composition, actually has no omega-3 fat, high amount of saturated fats in mithai, high amount of omega-6 fat here, high amount of salt here, high amount of sugar here. So in general, they are also Western diets which actually lack omega-3 fats. So what is the effect of body composition on weight or weight on immunity? Now we are almost all of us are holed up in the house for more than 1 year. This all started in last March and we are already in the May of a new year. And therefore, individuals are gaining weight because there is very little to do physically, as in exercise and other things. And there is overexposure to food. Now, we are not saying that we are making bad quality food at home, but the point is exposure is much more. So when you are out at work, you are out at clinics, seeing patients, you are not even thinking about food. But at home, even if you're doing an online consultation, kitchen is just 5 footsteps away and you can go in and consume food. Even if this food is healthy or fruit, it is leading to high amount of calories, which are impacting the body composition and weight of an individual. So if individual is underweight, deficiencies in total calories, protein, severely reduces immune function's ability to respond. White blood cells and other factors of immunity are themselves protein. And this is something that we need to think about very, very seriously, because Indian diets are very low in protein. They are one of the lowest protein diets in this globe. And we have to remember that all immune cells and immune components like complement and other are all proteins ultimately. And thus infection during starvation can lead to production of these at expense of other proteins from blood and tissue. In case of overweight and obesity, fat cells release inflammatory substance. And we know that in COVID, the inflammation is the bigger problem. It's a highly pro-inflammatory state. And if the individual has inflammatory stress to begin with, due to obesity, overweight, and high body fat percentage, this is just exacerbated. As these signals act as false alarm, they bring out body's responsiveness to them for actual infection by silencing the warning system, because body is so used to being in a pro-inflammatory stress. Now, because again, I'm a dietitian, so I'm going to talk about certain foods. So impact of dietary components on immune function, sugar, and when I mean sugar, jaggery and honey, all the three. Processed simple sugars reduce white blood cell phagocytosis and possibly increases inflammatory cytokine markers in the blood. Salts. again, when I mean salt, I mean all kinds of salt. So there is this whole thing in patient that safed namak is bad and kala namak and senda namak is very good. So it's not that. Salt is salt. So white salt, senda namak, pink namak, all of them. High salt in the diet might increase interleukin-17 mediated inflammation, and they could worsen autoimmune diseases. So basically they are pro-inflammatory. Now, impact of dietary components on immune function, we are going to talk about saturated fat. And where is saturated fat coming from in Indian diet? So when you talk about Western diet, saturated fat primarily comes from meat and meat products. But in India, because most of the country is vegetarian on most of the days, in most of the meals, saturated fat really comes from ghee, it comes from butter, coconut oil, and in populations who consume meat, red meat. The one potential harmful effect of fat is enhancement of prostaglandin system as it feeds into arachidonic acid and prostaglandin E2 pathways, which are pro-inflammatory in nature, increasing interleukin-17 production, macrophage activation, among other pathways. Dietary fats alter lipid membranes of immune cells and disrupting immune function. Now, what is very important for a good cell membrane of an immune cell is omega-3 fat, and that is precisely which is very, very low in Indian diets, because Indians primarily only around coast eat seafood. Otherwise, around in the middle of the country or where there is no coastline, seafood is not part of their normal diet. And the richest source of omega-3 fatty acids is the seafood in a form of eicosapentaenoic acid or docosahexaenoic acid. If you're looking at alpha-linolenic acid, which is a vegetarian form of omega-3 fat, then this is present in nuts and oil seeds, which are not eaten by people because they are expensive in nature. So richest source of omega-3 fat in diet would be walnuts, would be flax seeds, would be chia seeds, would be different kinds of seeds. But these, because they're expensive, they are not consumed in required quantity. Also, conversion of alpha-linolenic acid into eicosapentaenoic acid or docosahexaenoic acid, which are long-chain polymers of omega-3 fatty acids, are again genetically determined, and the conversion rates are far and few. So we know that when the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fat changes, and which has changed in Indian diet, the recommendation levels of omega-3 to omega-6 in the diet in prehistoric man was 1:1. Then it became 5:1 to 10:1, and now it is something like 200:1. So when we eat 200 milligrams of omega-6, we only eat 1 milligram of omega-3, and that too burnt in most of the cases. And then there are other pro-inflammatory foods like saturated fats, artificial sweeteners, sugars, meats, etc., gluten, salt, which might increase pro-inflammatory processes, causing gut inflammation, dysbiosis, leaky gut, and systemic lipopolysaccharides, and this might lead to increased susceptibility to infections, allergens, and inflammation. Now, this is one of the theory why individuals have compromised immune system. So again, these are factors which are responsible for immunity. So they are vitamins, they're proteins and amino acids, certain lipids, especially omega-3 fats, certain micronutrients as in elements like zinc, iron, selenium. These are very, very important. These changes in the antioxidant protection and gives us a very good immune response. So can I boost immunity through diet? So this is a question which is asked probably to every dietitian on this planet. So you can boost your immune system through diet, but there is no specific food or supplement that will prevent you from catching COVID-19 or coronavirus. Good hygiene practice remains the best method of avoiding infection. European food safety authorities have not authorized any claim for food or food component in UK to be labeled as protection against infection. There are many nutrients which are involved in normal functioning of immune system. So we encourage you to include them in a balanced diet in order to support immune function. They include copper, folate, iron, selenium, zinc, vitamins, etc. One cannot recommend one food over another. So there is no point in saying this is better and that is not good, this food is better and that food is not good. But instead, what is very important is to encourage eating a variety of foods. So that is called as nutritional diversity. Nutritional diversity is various different kinds of foods that you consume in your balanced diet. So when this is typical example given by most of the dietitians, and I'm going to give it to you, is when we talk about eating green leafy vegetables, most of the time people only think about spinach and methi. Okay, that is very poor nutritional diversity. If you can consume different kinds of green leafy vegetable, they are going to give you different concentrations of polyphenols, of antioxidant, and therefore you will get a balanced diet. So this is what is very important, is nutritional diversity. So I'm going to come to some macronutrients, because macronutrients are as important as micronutrients in immunity. So carbohydrate is an important fuel for immune system. Carbohydrate nutriments are largely found in vegetative foods containing carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen molecule. They are present in the blood in form of glucose in certain amount, and it is very important in respect of provision of continuous energy for the tissue. And why am I emphasizing on carbohydrates? I know for this August audience, this is all known, but there are a lot of people who are on ketogenic diet nowadays. Because they are home, they think that they can follow such extreme form of diets. In ketogenic diet, there is extreme drop down of carbohydrate percentage from the diet, and this can also lead to impairment of immune function. So what is recommended is eat complex carbohydrates which come from vegetable, fruit, and reduce carbohydrates that come from sugar, jaggery, honey, fruit juices, colas, sharbat, etc. Proteins are very, very important in immunity. So again, we all know proteins can be classified into first-class proteins or second-class proteins, but protein as a protein, try to consume them in every meal, not only in your dinner, because that's typically what is seen in India, is dal or non-veg is made in dinner, and through the day people are only eating roti sabzi or sandwiches or whatever it is, or poha upma or South Indian food, where it is devoid of protein. So try to include protein in every meal, including the breakfast. Instead of just eating poha, have poha with a bowl of curd or with a glass of milk, or maybe with a boiled egg or something like that, which will give you a lot more to do with your immune functions. Fats are also very, very important in immunity, and fats are a great source of energy. But like I said, fats get collected in the cell membrane, and actually that creates fluidity of the membrane, therefore impacting immune function. And also fats are very important for intake of vitamins which are fat soluble, like A, D, E, K. So fats are very important, but it's very important to remember that within fats, it's very important to consume omega-3 fats, which are essentially present in nuts and oilseeds or in seafood. So this is the role of omega-3 fat in the immunity. Omega-3 polyunsaturated fats are important mediators of inflammation and acquired immune response, and can amplify anti-inflammatory responses. And we know all these are problems of inflammation. Recent studies have shown that omega-3 polyunsaturated fat, including eicosapentaenoic acid or docosahexaenoic acid and alpha-linolenic acid, which is the vegetarian form of omega-3, can increase stability of cell membrane, regulate immune function, block hyperinflammatory reactions, reduce incidence of systemic inflammatory responses, and multiple organ dysfunction. Omega-3 fatty acids can exert antiviral effects by inhibiting influenza virus replication. According to European Society for Parenteral and Enteral Nutrition expert statement, use of omega-3 fatty acid may improve oxygenation in COVID-19 patients. Now, micronutrients. So these were macronutrients. Now, micronutrients are there, but they are never spoken about. And this is the first time probably in COVID infection that we were speaking so much about zinc and vitamin C, much to a delight of a nutritionist like me. So micronutrients are integral for immune function, because micronutrients are involved in antioxidant mechanism, which are vitamin C, E, zinc, iron, inhibitory actions, that is vitamin D, B6 and E, elimination of spent cells via apoptosis and clearance. Okay, so again, vitamin C, and a variety of micronutrients at all stages of immune cell growth and proliferation will be requiring micronutrients, because micronutrients are essentially catalysts which help the enzymes of DNA replication, of immune functions to function. Micronutrients are integral to immune function because they are required to ensure structural and functional integrity for external and internal surfaces of body. So all kind of barrier immunity, which forms physical and chemical barriers to present first line of defense against invading pathogen. cell-mediated processes, that is T-cell immunity, of innate immune systems such as cell proliferation, differentiation, movement, and ability to mount an effective oxidative burst and rely on adequate amounts of vitamin A, D, C, E, B6, B12, so on and so forth. So all these nutrients are very, very important. Chemical responses such as activation of complement system, pro-inflammatory cytokines requires many vitamins and minerals, and inflammatory responses can bridges the gap between innate and adaptive immunity, and it is regulated by vitamin A, C, E, B6, so on and so forth. So some nutrients I'm going to dwell into a little more than others. So vitamin A is actually called as anti-infective vitamin. Vitamin A deficiency increases susceptibility of pathogens in mucosal epithelium, whether it is eye, respiratory or GI tract. And we know COVID impacts all of these, whether it is eye, respiratory tract or GI tract, and therefore this nutrient becomes very important in management of COVID infection. Vitamin A offers some protection against other complications of life-threatening infections. Forms of vitamin A can be retinol, that is fat-soluble form, or it is the animal-based form, or vegetarian forms can be lycopene, beta-carotene, lutein, and lycopene. And vegetarian sources are tomatoes, green leafy vegetables, papaya, and non-vegetarian food. All foods will have ample amount of vitamin A, especially organ meats like liver. Vitamin B is a very important vitamin because it is a cofactor which participates in hundreds of reactions in the body tissue and also plays an important role in immune function. Any shortage of vitamin B may weaken host immune response, and they should be supplemented to the virus infected patient to enhance their immune system, because most of your cycle, whether it is citric acid cycle, glycolysis, any kind of cycle, you'll find cofactors are vitamin B. Sources are fruits, vegetables, pulses, and cereals. Vitamin B is widely distributed in nature. So if you're consuming enough of fruits and vegetables, you're going to get enough vitamin B, except vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is only present in non-vegetarian food, and hence strict vegetarians or vegans who do not even consume milk and milk products should speak to their healthcare provider about supplementing it. Vitamin C has got a lot of importance in COVID infection because it supports immune function and protects against infections which are caused by coronavirus. Vitamin C increases resistance of chick embryo cultures to avian corona infection. Vitamin C may also function as a weak antihistaminic agent to provide relief from flu-like symptoms such as sneezing, running, a stuffy nose, and swollen sinuses. And we know the sources of vitamin C, very, very easy to recognize. Whatever is sour on your tongue is great source of vitamin C. And look at our indigenous foods like amla, lemon, tomatoes, oranges, sweet limes, and green leafy vegetable. Now, in this season, kacha kairi is a very, very good source of vitamin C. So these are the various roles of vitamin C. It is a cofactor for family of biosynthetic and gene regulatory monooxygenase and dioxygenase system. These enzymes are involved in synthesis of collagen, carnitine, catecholamine hormones, and therefore vitamin C is very, very important because of all these factors. So they are responsible for the immune defense function in epithelial barriers, in phagocytes and neutrophils, in B and T cell lymphocytes, and in the inflammatory mediators. So you look at it, vitamin C has a wide role in immunity, and therefore consuming vitamin C is very, very important. It's even important in phagocytic function. Vitamin D, again a fat-soluble vitamin which has no presence in vegetarian food. So vitamin D stimulates maturation of many cells, including immune cells. Vitamin D metabolism in macrophages is linked to pathogen recognition, thus making it as an integral part of innate immune response. Vitamin D also modulates adaptive immune response and acts as a key intermediate in crosstalk between various immune cells. High number of healthy adults have been reported with low levels of vitamin D, mostly at the end of winter season. But we know in India, even though we are a tropical country, most of us land up being vitamin D deficient, probably because of the melanin in our skin. So we need to supplement it whenever required. It was said that COVID was first identified in winter of 2019, and it mostly affected middle-aged to elderly people. That is because they might have had lower levels of vitamin D globally because of absence of sunlight in winters. So we know there were also newspaper clippings which have shown that COVID vitamin D link, where there is data from 20 countries which is showing that low vitamin D levels have been linked to COVID infection. So now there are few products like milk which are fortified with vitamin D, but because lockdown is actually decreasing our exposure to sunlight. So most of us are holed up in our houses most of the day, and very few products in India like milk are fortified with vitamin D. But the problem is most of us buy this fortified milk and we heat it, and we don't heat it once, we repeatedly heat it with a fear that milk will get spoiled, and this actually reduces the fortification potency of vitamin D, because vitamin D, being heat sensitive, when you repeatedly heat it, gets destroyed. And hence, if you're going to make chai which is boiled for a long time with milk containing vitamin D, that vitamin D is not going to be available. Usually vitamin D is fortified after pasteurization, and if you heat milk again after pasteurization, the levels of fortification will come down. Vitamin E plays an important role in reducing oxidative stress through binding to free radicals as an antioxidant. It also enhances interleukin-2 production and decreases production of prostaglandin E2. Okay, so therefore, vitamin E is also important, and the sources are nuts, oil seeds, and germinating pulses. Besides that, selenium, we all know, is very critical in immune function. So it is very, very important that we consume foods which contain selenium, and selenium again is widely available. Richest source being non-vegetarian food, but even in vegetarian food, whole grain milk and curd, especially if one is not vegan but is vegetarian and consumes milk and curd, you are going to get enough selenium from your diet. Now, zinc is one nutrient that has got a lot of interest in micronutrients, especially during COVID time. It has been shown that zinc deficiency results in dysfunction of both humoral and cell-mediated immunity and increases susceptibility to infectious diseases. Increasing concentration of intracellular zinc with zinc ionophores like pyrithione can efficiently impact replication of a variety of RNA viruses, and coronavirus is a RNA virus. So these are beneficial effects of zinc, but more importantly, natural sources are nuts, oil seeds, pulses, and non-vegetarian foods. So it's very important that to understand that most of the foods which are rich in zinc are protein rich themselves. So nuts are a great source of protein, so are pulses, and so are oil seeds. So these foods give you dual advantage. They give you protein and they give you zinc, both of which are very, very important in immunity or enhancing immunity. So it is essential for proper functioning of immune system. Zinc deficiency can result in decreased resistance against infectious diseases. It can improve immune function with deficient population when supplemented. And zinc also acts as an anti-inflammatory agent and plays a role in oxidative stress. Now, we all know, this is not a news to this august audience, that we are a country with a lot of prevalence of anemia. So overall, 53.2% of Indians are anemic, most of which will be women and children, but still half of the nation is anemic. 58% children are anemic, 54% adolescent girls are anemic, 29% of adolescent boys are also anemic, 53% of women of reproductive age are anemic, 50% of pregnant women are anemic, and 58% of breastfeeding mothers are also anemic. And we know that normal iron levels help in better immune response. So therefore, we want individuals to have better iron, better intake of iron to have better immunity. Now, we know that green leafy vegetables and non-vegetarian food are great sources of iron. While green leafy vegetables give us non-heme iron, non-vegetarian food gives us heme iron, which is directly absorbed. If you are consuming green leafy vegetables as source of iron, you need to consume it with ascorbic acid, that is vitamin C, which is again very important in immunity. So you will see that the link in absorption and link in immune function is very, very strong, and therefore consuming both together is very, very important. Alterations of iron homeostasis can persist for at least 2 months after onset of COVID-19 and are closely associated with non-resolving lung pathologies, which are so very common, and impaired physical performance, both of which is very important. And hence, looking after our patients' iron stores is also very, very important. Now, these are slides which I just brought in because I thought that these are things which probably would interest physicians a lot. So what is estimated energy average requirement? What is RDA? What is tolerable upper limit? What is adequate intake? And what is the lower threshold of the intake? So what is estimated average requirement? It refers to average nutrient intake estimated to meet requirements of half the healthy population in a particular life stage and a gender group. So it is primarily used to evaluate populations or groups. So as long as you are reaching EAR, it is okay. RDA refers to dietary nutrient intake level that is sufficient to meet nutrient requirements in about 98% of healthy individuals. And RDAs is what dietitians look at when we supplement foods. Upper tolerable limit refers to highest amount of nutrient that you can take, beyond which it will be adverse, or it will pose adverse risk to most of the individuals in the population. So adequate intakes are values used when estimated average requirement and RDAs cannot be determined of a particular nutrient. So these are very, very important. This is 2020 RDA guidelines, and this is something which I wanted to show you. So look at even the protein guidelines for Indians. Yeah, and this is for adults. Look at this. Men at least require 54 grams and women at least, non-pregnant women at least require 45 grams if they weigh between 55 to 65 kgs. Friends, we know that most of the Indians consume per daily protein much below 40 grams per day. Look at zinc again. Zinc require, these are RDAs 17 and 13. So our RDAs are somewhere in between there. And also if you look at other nutrients, look at vitamin C, 80 and 65. So this is somewhere between there is the RDA for most of the population. And these are upper tolerable limits for the nutrients. So if you look at vitamin C, again 2000 milligrams per day, zinc not more than 40 milligrams per day. And you find, why am I emphasizing on upper tolerable limits, is because we find people unnecessarily popping pills. The doctors are not giving me that, but it's very important to understand more than this can be also hazardous. And we know there is a lot of data coming now that high amount of zinc intake might be related to complications such as mucormycosis, although it is not established by evidence-based science. These theories are doing rounds. Now, these are WHO nutrition advice for adults during COVID-19 outbreak. What is being advised by WHO is eat plenty of fruits and vegetables, lentils and beans, especially in vegetarian population, and unprocessed grains. Now, we know this lockdown, we are more prepared in the second lockdown. But first lockdown was announced, and we really, lot of people did not have fruit and vegetable in their house that time, stocked for months together. So this actually took a toll on people, and they were actually eating more refined foods. We were seeing Facebook posts of people making cakes and eating them. So that's really not good. For snack, choose raw vegetable and fresh fruit rather than foods which are high in salt, sugar, and maida. So all your biscuits and cookies, they should not be chosen. Rather choose fresh fruits and vegetable. Now, a lot of people have this whole idea that if the fruit vendor or the vegetable bhajiwala may be carrying COVID, and if we touch the vegetables or we eat the vegetables that that person is selling, we might get COVID. Now, remember, COVID is not foodborne. It is a respiratory infection. As long as you are maintaining the hygiene, you're cleaning the fruits and vegetables that you buy, or non-vegetarian food that you buy from the vendor, you are actually protected. So this is nutritional advice for adults during COVID. 2 servings of fruit, that is 1 fruit a day at least. 2.5 servings of vegetable, that is 3 cups of vegetables. 180 grams of whole grains. And if you're not eating meat, then you can eat pulses and legumes. Drink plenty of fluid. It is very, very important. but you can also eat fruit and vegetable that contains water and not drink fruit juice or vegetable juice. It's very, very important that you eat fruit. So nowadays, watery fruits like watermelon, muskmelon are available in this season, or lychees. Please don't make juices out of them. Eat fruit as it is. Avoid too much caffeine and sweetened fruit juices, syrup, fruit juices, fruit juice concentrate, fizzy drinks should be avoided to prevent COVID-19 infection. Limit your intake of soft drinks, sodas, and limit your salt intake to less than 1 teaspoon a day per person. Avoid eat unsaturated fat, especially omega-3 fats, which are coming from fish, other fats coming from nuts, oil seeds, etc. Don't eat saturated fats which are coming from coconut oil, cream, or ghee in India, and definitely avoid eating trans fat which are coming from hydrogenated fats like dalda. Now, nobody's buying dalda in their house and cooking food, but all the ready-to-eat mithais and namkeens that you get are all cooked in hydrogenated oil. So again, eating at home reduces your risk of contact with other people and lowers your chance of getting COVID infections. So maintain social distancing and eat a well-balanced meal. Now, again, these are things which I thought are very important. There is no exposure by eating food. There's no way that you can catch COVID infections from eating food. It's a respiratory disease. Just follow the basic guidelines of washing your hand and separating meats from vegetables, etc. while cooking. Now, these are Ayush guidelines because they are so big, they are highly recommended by Indian population. So try to consume this food. But one piece of advice, we are seeing that while in COVID, a lot of people are drinking a lot of kadas. Now, what is happening is lot of medications which are given for COVID, which include sometimes antibiotics, sometimes other medications, antivirals, so on and so forth, even steroids some of the times. They themselves cause a lot of acidity, though we give antacids and we give proton pump inhibitors to our patients. And then when they have kada, we see a lot of times people getting bothered by increased acidity. So if it is a problem and you're taking medications for COVID, then at that time, if acidity is an issue, you want to decrease consumption of kadas. Otherwise, these foods are called as functional foods like ginger, which I've shown. And ginger can not be only used as kada. It can be used in cooking. It can be just a piece can be chewed for cough. Garlic is used widely in food. It also can be used. Tulsi can be used. Just boiling tulsi with water is also good enough to give you all those micronutrients. And curcumin, you don't have to actually go and eat curcumin separately in India because curcumin is a part of our diet. But it has been shown that when curcumin is supplemented along with lactoferrin, which is present in milk, especially in children, recurrent respiratory infections can be minimized. And therefore, if somebody is having doodh haldi with minimum amount of haldi, not enough to cause acidity, then please go ahead and have these. So take home message, just my last slide, that there is a need of balanced nutrition to boost immunity. There is no one thing which is good and one thing which is bad. Everything is good. What is very important is balance. You can't eat too much of protein and you can't eat too little of carbohydrate. Everything is important. Dietary intake of protein and micronutrients is especially inadequate in India. And therefore, it is spoken about a lot because it can impact immunity. There is a mounting evidence to suggest that intake of some micronutrients above RDA while in infection can maximize immune function and thus improve resistance to infection. So if you're taking higher doses of, say, zinc, or you're taking higher doses of vitamin A while in infection, it's important. Moment infection, you have got better, infection is not there, you can go back to RDA levels. Do not supplement it beyond RDA levels, especially post or pre-infection. Now, gaps exist between dietary intakes and levels of optimal immune function provide a rationale to supplement the diet with micronutrients, because we Indians really don't like to eat things in their native form. How many of us eat salads every day? We cook our vegetables to a point that it loses all its micronutrients and is only full of masalas. So if that is so, then you need to supplement micronutrients. But friends, remember, they should be supplemented only in the levels of RDA, because if you go beyond RDA, sometimes you can reach upper tolerable limits of these micronutrients. Thank you so much for a patient hearing.
Really, thank you very much, Shilpa Doshi madam. It's really fantastic. And, you made the presentation, so simple. I think we got a lot of feedback. Your presentation is really, it's like, you are talking about basic things and what is important when you talk about immunity and health. And what I understood from your presentation is balance is very, very important, whatever you take. But then at the end, you have to balance everything, like, balance amount of protein, balance amount of carbohydrate, and then micronutrients. So thank you, madam. And I think there are plenty of questions which I am getting. So we will start one by one.
Yes.
So there is question from Ashfaq Ahmad. He wanted to understand, is omega-3 fatty acid is helpful post-COVID patient or not? Post-COVID patient.
Yes. So omega-3 fatty acids actually are very important, pardon me, in immunity. Now, post-COVID also people can succumb to secondary infections. So as long as they can, like I said, keep that ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fat in the balance, like Dr. Abhijit said, it's all about balancing. So because omega-6 fat is available through all cooking oils, so there is no omega-3. So if you can supplement omega-3, the ratio will be maintained, which is very important, not only for immunity, in general, for good health. Hello? Am I there? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can see you. I thought I broke off.
You can continue.
No. So that is what I said, that omega-3 fat, that ratio to be maintained of omega-6 to omega-3 in 5:1 or 10:1 will come only with supplementing omega-3, because we do not have omega-3 in vegetarian diets, and not all non-vegetarian people eat fish every single day of their life. And all the fish that is eaten in India is fried fish, where all omega-3 is lost.
Oh. You are correctly told, madam. Let's go to another question. See, because in this current COVID scenario, most of the patients who suffered from COVID, they advise to go for home quarantine. And as you know, in home quarantine, how to follow healthy diet is one of the important challenge what they face. So can you give some advice, how to maintain the balance diet when the patient is in home quarantine?
So I think in home quarantine, the bigger problem is that, people were not getting fresh produce. So nobody was sending, it's difficult to get fresh fruit and vegetable, and it's difficult to get, milk and other things. In home quarantine, if there is one individual who is quarantined, others can go out. Everybody gets quarantined, that's the problem. But if there are neighbors or there is some shopkeeper who can send food to your home, what is very important is eat simple food. People think that there is one superfood which can be eaten and all the problems will be sorted. Is not the reality. The reality is eat simple food, eat simple homemade food. If you know somebody who makes a dabba and sends that food, you can ask that person to drop off that dabba at your doorstep and you can go and pick it up with a no contact delivery. But it's very important to eat simple, non-spicy, simple food and really stress upon hydration. That is something which is forgotten. A lot of times with COVID, there is a lot of fever, prolonged fever for a lot of time, and hydration becomes very, very important. Again, when I mean hydration, I mean it with simple water. You don't have to drink sarbat and you don't have to drink anything.
Drinks.
Just as long as you can drink enough water, that's good for you.
Right. So as you correctly told, simplicity is very important. Eat simple food. Even our body also cannot, digest complex food. And finally, the all the complex parts are broken down into simple, and then that's why simple food is very important.
Don't put stress on your body to digest complicated food.
Right.
Because we know when the fat percentage in the diet increases, gastric emptying time increases.
Right.
That actually delays absorption of nutrients.
Right.
So therefore, it's very important to eat sada ghar ka khana.
Right. So, madam, one more question from Dr. Shankar Mandal from Kolkata. He wanted to ask any specific, a diet we can use, especially for those patients who are having comorbidity. like, type 2 diabetes and
Yes.
then
So
hypertension
this
and
is
COPD?
very important, sir, and it's a great question. So we know more is patient in euglycemia, or better is the patient blood sugar control, lesser are complications of COVID, or even that goes true for hypertension or heart disease or anything. So it's very important, and lot of times steroids are given during COVID. So they will increase blood sugar, they will induce hypertension in those patients if it is given for slightly prolonged time. So try to, again the same principle, eating balanced diet, reducing intake of salt, minimizing intake of refined carbohydrates like sugar or maida or jaggery. Very, very important. So as long as you can eat simple food, and every time you eat food, I think you should develop this habit among your patients to ask if every component is present. Is there a carbohydrate? Yes. Is there a protein? Yes. Is there a vegetable? Yes. Is there a fat? Yes. Fat nahi hoga, aisa kabhi nahi hoga. Fat to hoga hi. But the problem is when it comes is protein and vegetables. So I'll give you a simple example. In morning, people eat poha, upma or idli dosa. They will eat it with chutney. So there is no vegetable. There is no protein. Okay. And even if they eat egg, then they will eat it with white bread. So the carbohydrate is refined. Then there are no vegetables. And then they say कि हमारा sugar नाश्ते के बाद बढ़ जाता है. बढ़ेगा ही. Because you are eating everything which is a simple carbohydrate.
So I think you already answered this question. Role of zinc and iron in mucor infection, should it be restricted? So I think you already told.
Yeah, so it's very important that you don't go beyond RDA. For a short while in infection, if you go beyond RDA, but I am seeing people taking supplement beyond RDA for a year now. They started taking it last March and they're still taking it. And I think that should be avoided. RDAs are very important. RDAs are defined for a particular reason. So maintaining RDA is very important.
Right. And one more question, I'm getting frequently. Is there any, different diet which we need to plan, prior to COVID or during COVID period and then post-COVID?
I wish we knew when we are going to get COVID. So we are all either prior to COVID or after the COVID.
Yes,
correct?
Yes.
So there is no diet. There is no diet. The diet is simple homemade food. Try to avoid foods high in salt, sugar and fat. That is very, very important. So please don't eat pakoras and all, because like I said, gastric emptying delays and these cause problem. Blood sugars go high, your cholesterols will go high. The other reason being we have no avenues to exercise. See, exercise is very, very important in good immune function and maintaining metabolic health. But now to save our lives, we cannot exercise. Gyms are closed, pools are closed. We are not even sending our children out in the grounds to play. So it's very, very difficult for us to exercise. How much are you going to walk on treadmill? And how much are you going to walk on a static cycle? And in houses, I am sure in other places there are big houses. But in Bombay, the houses are also 400 and 500 square feet.
Yes.
So there is no place to walk.
Right.
So you basically need to eat less, need to eat balanced, and need to eat simple. There is no pre, post and intra-COVID diet. There is nothing like that.
Right. One more interesting question which I would like to ask you. This is what we are talking about. It's for adult, but as you know, children's they are because there are a lot of liking and disliking about food. So how to tackle that problem in this COVID era?
See, the first thing which I always talk about children is children have nothing in their hand. They don't have money and they cannot go out and buy food. So when parents say that children have liking and disliking is because they are appreciating those likes and dislikes. So as long as parents eat a balanced meal, child will eat a balanced meal. Child has no choice. Child can't cook, child can't go and buy, and child definitely cannot Swiggy without parents' credit card. So if the parent is strict and eats wholesome diet, child will eat wholesome diet. One day child will not eat, next day automatically out of no choice the child will eat. So as long as parents stop buying ready-to-eat foods at home. So if you eat chips and you buy chips, your child is going to eat chips. You don't buy them, where will the child eat from? So I think likes and dislikes in children are developed by parents. Sometimes out of choice, sometimes in parents like us who are working out of no choice. Because we are working late, we want to stock something at home so that child can eat something. But I think it's very important to stock fruit and vegetable. And another thing I would like to emphasize this, eating fruit and vegetable is also eating food. You know, in my practice, whenever I plan a snack as a fruit, and I said, a lot of mothers ask me, 5 baje kya dene ka bachche ko khane? So I say, fruit do na. Ye fruit to dete hai, khana kya dene ka? Fruit is khana. Fruit is, it's not that fruit is not khana, but in India, khana is something that comes out of kadai. It does not come out of trees. So it's very important for us to change our mentality, to think of almonds as food, walnuts as food, fruits as food, carrot sticks as food, and only then immunity of our child will go high.
Interesting question. Generally during COVID, the patient, they lost their appetite, no
And
taste
smell.
and no smell. So in that situation, it's really, challenging how to maintain the balanced diet. So can you?
See, you can use other things, it's said that, you don't only eat with your mouth, you eat with your eyes, you eat with your nose by the aroma of the food, and you also eat with your ears with the sound of food. So work with textures, work with colors while giving food to somebody who is affected with COVID because they can't smell and taste. So at least the food should look pretty. And I am not saying do plate method like MasterChef Australia and all that. All that I am not saying, but try to use something green, something red, something yellow. So the food looks pretty. Try to work with texture, give something raw, like, noise of papad being crunched or a khakra being crunched, a crisp roti, a soft rice, sprouts which are sharp. So all these things you can work on, a cucumber which makes sound. I think all these things will make food more interesting. Even when you're giving soup, try to put in different vegetables. Not only do they give micronutrients, but they also make food look very pretty. And pretty food is appetizing.
So, madam, there are a lot of questions. Actually, the people they wanted to, they want basically a diet chart. Simple diet chart, which diet chart which can be used.
I'll tell you what is a simple diet chart. Get up in the morning, drink water, have a cup of tea or coffee if you want to. Otherwise, have a cup of milk if you're younger. And then eat a simple breakfast having one protein source. Okay. What does one protein source mean? If you're a non-vegetarian, you can eat an egg. If you're a vegetarian, eat sprouts. Eat something which is made from dals, or eat a bowl of dahi. Now, dahi causing upper respiratory tract infection is a myth. Nothing happens eating dahi. Right. Please eat dahi every day. Fresh dahi is very good. Or you can even add paneer. So if you're eating, say, a roti, you eat it with paneer instead of eating with pickle. Okay, or you eat it with a bowl of dahi. Lunch has to be dal, sabzi, roti and chawal, and importance is exactly in that method. Dal is very important, salad is very important, sabzi is very important, dahi is very important, optional is roti chawal. Same is true for dinner, and in snacks, please eat fruit and nuts, whichever nuts your patients can afford. If they can't afford, not every patient can afford almonds and walnuts. If they can afford chana, they can afford mungfali. Mungfali everybody can afford. 10 rupees ka mungfali everybody can afford. Because your Maggi is also more expensive than mungfali. So at least eat 10 rupees ka mungfali every day. That is also good source of many fats.
Right. So, madam, we will take few more questions because we are, running out of time. So when you are, giving suggestion about egg, eating egg, what exactly is it? White part or yellow part?
So again, no. Let me tell you something. If the patient is with a comorbidity, say uncontrolled type 2 diabetes or CVD, then we don't give egg yellow because we do not know the level of control their dose of statin. So we give them egg whites. But if it's a young patient, you can give a whole egg. There is no problem at all.
Okay. One more question. How to maintain gut immunity? Because you already answered about dahi. So maybe anything else?
No, so dahi, don't think of dahi more as probiotic.
Right.
But what actually maintains gut immunity is fiber. Now how? Fiber goes undigested to large intestine. And in the colon, fiber is fermented to create short chain fatty acid. And short chain fatty acid is the food for colonocytes. And that actually keeps the junctions tight. And it maintains gut immunity. And therefore, eating fiber. And when I mean eating fiber, means eating vegetables, eating fruit and eating dals, whole dals, akka moong, akka matki, akka chauli, chana, rajma, that actually builds your gut immunity. Probiotics are important, but before probiotics, what is very important is prebiotics, that is fiber, because probiotics feed on prebiotics and maintain gut health.
Right.
So everybody talks about probiotics, you take them orally also, you may eat probiotic food, but ultimately prebiotic actually define how well probiotic is going to work.
So maybe, a few more questions we will take before ending. So again, a simple question, omega-3 fatty acid, if we are vegetarian, and as you told, omega-3 fatty acid is, the content is very high in fish, and if we are not eating fish, then how to,
so
manage
like I said, alpha-linolenic acid is the precursor of long-chain omega-3 fatty acid, which is eicosapentaenoic and docosahexaenoic. Now, eicosapentaenoic and docosahexaenoic is only present in fish, and that also not all fishes, certain oily fishes. So in Indian case, it can be bangda or it can be ravas and all of them. But in vegetarian population, you can consume alpha-linolenic acid, and alpha-linolenic acid is widely distributed in nature. So all seeds, especially chia seeds, flax seeds, they are great sources of omega-3 alpha-linolenic acid. Walnuts are a great source. Lots of pulses like akka udad is a great source of alpha-linolenic acid. So maa ki dal, kali dal jo khate hain, that usko makhan mein mat banao, usko simple banao, then you will get, otherwise all saturated fat will eat up omega-3 fatty acid. So if you are consuming such foods, and a lot of green leafy vegetables are very, very rich source of alpha-linolenic acid, try to consume them as a source.
Right. Madam, one more question from Dr. Poonam. She's from Kathmandu, Nepal. How much flax seeds do you recommend every day?
So you can go up to 15 grams very easily, but don't start with 15 grams. Lot of people get a lot of gastritis after eating flax seeds. Start with 2.5 grams, roast it, powder it. You can add it to your raita, you can add it on in your dal, you can add it in bhaji, and gradually build up to 15 grams.
Right. So I think, Madam, we are, on the at the end of our, wonderful discussion. I'm, getting a lot of questions, but then most of the questions we already answered. So now it's time to, close our session. So now I, request Mr. Mrunmay, he's a senior GM, Sales and Marketing, Alchem Laboratories, to give vote of thanks to everyone. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Thank you, Dr. Abhijit. Well, a very good evening to the august audience. I would like to thank the esteemed audience for having carved out time to be a part of this webinar. I would like to specially thank Dr. Shilpa Joshi for giving us insights on nutrition and immunity in such a lucid way, and Dr. Abhijit for moderating the session so well. I will also like to thank the technical team for taking us through the session without any glitches. Alchem in its journey had always been associated with initiatives which is academic and time relevant. I hope all of you have enjoyed today's session. We'll be looking forward to connect with you in more such sessions in future, which is of your interest. I will request you to stay safe in this pandemic situation, which is very important. And we'll once again thank you and wish you a very good night.
Thank you, Mrunmay, for vote of thanks. And one, announcement I would like to make. Participant, please, don't forget to download the certificate which is available at the site, prior to closing the program. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, friends, and stay safe. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.